Hello everyone, today I want to talk about a certain reporter who, after watching China's military parade, said that we really hope to live a life like China's. Also, the EU's foreign minister is unbelievably stupid, actually questioning Russia's claim that China and Russia won World War II, and even saying that this statement is quite novel. China's commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Chinese People's War of Resistance and the military parade concluded perfectly. The reaction from American politicians was relatively normal. Even US President Trump said the parade was impressive, but it was the EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kallas, who has always been anti-Russia and anti-China, that kept spouting nonsense and became a laughingstock. On September 3rd, Kallas first commented on Beijing's September 3rd commemorative event, saying that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea were all standing together. He claimed this showed the formation of an authoritarian alliance, not only opposing the West, but also directly challenging the so-called rules-based international order. It turns out Kallas didn't just say these things. Later, today, Russian editor Simonian shared a video clip on social media platform X. Then, on September 3rd, at a meeting of the EU Institute for Security Studies, the EU foreign minister questioned the contributions of China and Russia during World War II. At the meeting, Kallas said, "Russia tells China, we participated in World War II, we won World War II, we defeated the Nazis." Kallas remarked, "Well, this is certainly something new. If you understand history, there will be a lot of question marks in your mind." Kallas then actually advised people to read more books, saying that people haven't really read or remembered that much history, which is why some end up believing these narratives. Netizens immediately commented under videos related to Kallas, saying that such bizarre remarks from the EU foreign minister are honestly laughably stupid. One netizen said, "This is Kallas's World War II history lesson." But she's the EU's top diplomat, so let's take a moment to process this news. Some people even questioned whether Kallas left her brain at home before making her public speech. Others asked, just how stupid is Kallas? The Soviet Union and China suffered massive casualties during World War II, ranking first and second. According to a report by People's Daily, incomplete statistics show that over 35 million Chinese soldiers and civilians were killed or injured during World War II, with the death toll reaching as high as 21 million. According to data released by Russia, during the Great Patriotic War from 1941 to 1945, the Soviet Union lost more than 27 million people. Chen Huihua, the head of China News Service's Europe Bureau, posted multiple times criticizing Kallas, saying that Kallas is like a Nazi. She stated that 450 million European citizens should feel ashamed that Kallas represents them on the global stage, and that Kallas should be sent back to elementary school to learn history. As for me, I decided to ask Google's AI, who were the victors of World War II? The answer is that the main victors of WO2 were the Allied powers, primarily made up of the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, China, and others. Together, they resisted and defeated the Axis powers, which consisted of Germany, Japan, and Italy. The war ended in 1945, and in order to maintain world order, the victors established the United Nations and ushered in the Cold War era, marked by the confrontation between the two superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union. It seems that the historical knowledge of large AI models is much better than Kallas's, and they're even more suitable to be the EU's foreign minister. Some netizens said that what she said was really embarrassing. Kallas doesn't seem to realize that Russia and China were among the victors of World War II, and people around the world are left wondering how she explains the fact that China and Russia are permanent members of the UN Security Council. Looking back at the history of World War II and the founding of the United Nations, in 1940, France was defeated and surrendered, but the other Allied countries continued to fight hard. In October 1943, the foreign ministers of the Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom held a meeting in Moscow where they adopted 4 declarations on general security, drafted by the US government and signed by the Soviet Union, the US, the UK, and China. The Four-Power Declaration clearly stated that the 4 governments recognized the necessity of establishing, at the earliest practicable date, an organization based on the principle of sovereign equality of all peace-loving states. To establish a universal international organization, this was the idea behind the founding of the United Nations. By August 1944, representatives from the US, UK, Soviet Union, and China held a meeting at Dumbarton Oaks, an old estate near Washington, D.C. At this meeting, they outlined the basic framework of the United Nations Charter and resolved the main issues concerning the establishment of the United Nations. When discussing the composition of the United Nations Security Council, the United States initially proposed 4 permanent members and 7 non-permanent members. Later, they suggested including France, which had already surrendered, as the 5th permanent member. By the end of World War II in 1945, the 5 victorious powers, China, the UK, the US, France, and the Soviet Union, became the permanent members of the UN Security Council, and they were granted the special privilege of veto power. To sum up, first of all, it is a historical fact that China, Russia, the UK, and France truly won the Second World War. Yet, Ms. Ko actually called this a new revelation. Who does she think were the victors of WW3? Was it only the United States? If that were the case, why would the UN Security Council need 5 permanent members? Second, how could someone as clueless as Ms. Bachelet become the EU's foreign minister? This is truly Europe's misfortune. She has been completely brainwashed by America's anti-Russia and anti-China ideology. Now that Trump has come to power, even the United States itself has changed. But Kalas still doesn't know how to adapt. She and her boss, von der Leyen, are leading the EU into the abyss of decline. I'd also like to talk about those people who grew up in happiness, who don't know the hardships of the world and don't understand the importance of stability. Take the 9/3 military parade as an example. Just by showcasing the world's most advanced new weapons, it shocked foreign military and political circles and made Chinese people feel proud. But compared to a young man from Iraq, the level of excitement among Chinese people still pales in comparison. This young Iraqi, in his 20s, his name is Fang Haoming, a reporter for Central Asia Satellite TV in the Middle East, stationed in Beijing. He adopted a Chinese name. He was caught on camera covering his face and crying while watching the Beijing military parade. Later, other reporters interviewed him. Fang Haoming said that he was deeply moved when he saw the Chinese military parade, and his emotions lingered for a long time. Especially when he saw the release of doves and balloons at the end, he couldn't stop crying. Fang Haoming said he especially hopes that peace can be achieved in the Middle East and that people in the Middle East can live the kind of life that people in China have. The same kind of life. He said that if his own country had such military equipment, they wouldn't have to suffer the pain of war. He said that China has allowed so many countries to come to China to cooperate and develop, and he hopes the world can become one big family, just like the slogan written in Tiananmen Square, "Long live the great unity of the people of the world." The Middle East, where Fang Haoming was born, is still plagued by war today, and his homeland Iraq saw the Saddam regime overthrown in 2003 after the US invasion. At this moment, although a new government has been established and there are still American troops stationed in the country, even after 14 years since the war, the country has yet to truly develop. Fang Haoming's words remind people of China over 100 years ago. In 1894, during the First Sino-Japanese War, although the Qing government had purchased advanced German warships, the Dingyuan and Zhenyuan, they were quickly defeated by Japanese warships soon after the war began, leading to the humiliating Treaty of Shimonoseki. Who could have imagined that, just a few decades later, China would be able to develop the military strength it has today? Now, China is not only able to stand up to Japan, but is also strong enough to counterbalance the United States. If a war were to break out in the Asia-Pacific region tomorrow, it's hard to imagine the US being able to defeat China. China's journey has been long and arduous, overcoming countless hardships. The key has been maintaining political stability and creating a favorable environment, especially in the more than 40 years since 1978, allowing the country to focus its efforts on economic development and ultimately embark on the path to prosperity and strength. When I was in Beijing attending the military parade, some of the people who went with me were industrialists. They talked about their experiences investing overseas. In less developed regions, Western countries used to offer very favorable tariffs, and combined with low wages and other production costs, this attracted manufacturers to set up factories there. However, one veteran in the industry remarked, "Actually, when it comes to investing overseas, there's a simple PEST formula. P stands for political stability, E for economic conditions, S for social circumstances, and T for industrial technology. But among these, what they consider most important is P. Without stability, nothing else matters." He said that for investors setting up factories in a developing country, they have to invest at least hundreds of millions to build factories and purchase machinery. If the factory can operate locally for more than 10 years and the machinery is fully depreciated, then the investment is considered to have paid off. The problem is, if turmoil breaks out just a few years after the investment, it's very likely that everything will be lost. Several industrialists gave the example of setting up factories in Madagascar. More than 10 or 20 years ago, quite a few manufacturers went there to open factories. A friend invested a huge sum to build a factory there, but in 2009, large-scale unrest broke out locally. The country's political situation has been turbulent for a long time and remains unstable. His investment of over 300 million ended up going completely down the drain. The factory shut down and he couldn't even get the machinery out. This shows that if a place isn't stable, no one will invest there. Many people have heard the Western narrative that a place's development is often judged primarily by its level of democracy and freedom, but that's just a tool the US uses to support pro-American regimes. After introducing such systems, it doesn't necessarily guarantee long-term political stability. Once the political situation becomes unstable, investments go down the drain, and after something goes wrong, investors won't come back. In recent years, Myanmar has also experienced this. Half the country is in the hands of rebel forces, and many investors who set up factories there are left in a tough spot. Political stability is like air. You don't notice it when it's there, but when it's gone, you realize just how painful it is. This reminds me of something Warren Buffett said at the shareholders meeting this May. Someone from Shanghai asked him how to deal with setbacks, and Buffett answered very directly. He said, "You were born in the best era China has seen in thousands of years. You waited in the womb for thousands of years just to be born today. How incredibly lucky is that?" Rather than getting caught up in bad things, it's better to focus on the beauty of life right now. In conclusion, it really is incredibly fortunate to be Chinese and living in today's era.